Welcome everybody to live Q&A by Brain Power Training, and it's my pleasure today to have Cecille Heath with us today. Hello, Cecille.
Hi, Nina. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Cecille. It's great to have you here. You're one of our Sydney-based facilitators, and I'd just like to tell everybody a little bit about your background, which is quite impressive, really.
Thank you.
You specialise in helping companies reach their goals, and so does Brain Power Training. And you're a former principal of the very prestigious training organisation, Rogan?
That's right, yes.
Rogan International, right. The soft G. And you managed a team of trainers, you looked after their sales, like made sure that they got sales results, you looked after the quality assurance, in many respects like I do with my facilitators around the country. So that is a job that requires a great deal of expertise and a great deal of insight. So I'm so happy that you're available to our clients. Now, you graduated as a computer science,
That's right. Yes.
And your early career was involved in presenting on IT topics and doing sales and training. And right. You've got such an extensive track record with some blue chip clients. So on your accreditations, you've got the Predictive Index, Strength Deployment Inventory, NLP, Louis Allen Worldwide Management System, and currently conflict resolution. So you've got quite a few feathers in your cap, Cecille.
Yes, and I love to learn more too.
Yeah. I have what the French call soif, which is French for thirst for knowledge. Yeah. Sounds like you do too. Yeah. Well, today's topic is why should a team, and that's my question for you, Cecile, now, why should a team have its own vision and mission statements?
It's a really good thing to unpack to people that are listening, and there's a few reasons why it's important. The first one is that invariably an organisation has a mission and a vision. Very often for a team, depending on how far away they are from that, that top level of the organisation, it doesn't resonate with them. They don't get where they fit in, and like if it's something huge, like we increase shareholder value. Well, if you're sitting there behind your computer and you're doing accounting or customer service, well, how am I doing that? And that's where the idea came from, that we need to actually create missions and visions for teams so that they understand how it adds up to that overarching mission and vision of the organisation.
Absolutely. And coincidentally, after we decided this would be the topic for our live Q&A, I had contact with someone from a very large government department in regional Australia, where they had the whole of organisation mission statement is around, we provide great health and well-being to the community, and all these lovely motherhood statements about the big organisation. But now we're talking about the IT department, where they're not being friendly, they're what's the word, they're sticking to policy. If people have an IT problem, they say, and they're actually on-site fixing it, they won't actually add that to what they're fixing. They'll say, oh, put it in as a ticket, and they have to come back and fix it another time. So they're not cutting red tape, or they're sticking to the rules. And it's like, well, they need their own vision, mission, and service statement about, we give friendly service, and we can bend over backwards to help a client, we can educate them, all that. That's got nothing to do with the overarching principle of the big organisation. So
that's exactly right.
You have your own anecdotes and case studies around that.
I sure do.
And well, what exactly is the difference between a vision statement and a mission statement?
So many people get confused by that, and it's really simple. The mission statement is what you do. So if you make widgets, or Google's got a really clear mission statement, which is how they provide access to data. And then the vision statement is the aspiration on, well, where do we want to get to? Mission, what we do, vision, where we want to get to. And again, Google is another great example. Their vision is to have, it's about access to information still, but it's with the press of one key.
And so when you've been working with a team, do you work on both? I understand you might do it over 2 half-day sessions or 1 full-day session. Would you separate them and say, we're going to work on vision now and we'll work on mission later, or are you working on both at the same time?
You do work on them separately, although in the process that I use, you can certainly get it done in one session. It's what comes next after you've got your mission and your vision. You then have to unpack, well, that's all nice, but now what are the strategic pillars? So what are the things that we're going to focus on in our business, and then how do we behave to achieve those things? So that's certainly, the mission and the vision can be done in one session.
And do you make reference to any frameworks like SWOT, or, I mean, I'm not the expert here, but what sort of frameworks might you connect them with to think about this?
Yes, yeah, there is a what I call a breakthrough thinking process that is used, because what's so important when you're developing a mission and a vision is that everybody owns it, and it's not done by the leaders and then done to the team, so to speak. So you take them through a process of a very important question. It's the way that the question is asked is so important. And what I found is that we have to differentiate first between what mission is and what vision is. Typically provide an example. I often use the Google example because it's so clear cut. And then we'll also show them their own business's mission statement and say, okay, so we're this team. What is our mission in the context of what we do as an organisation? Here's our mission organisationally. What does our team do in light of that vision? And I get the breakthrough thinking process is that then everyone silently brainstorms for 5 minutes the answers to those questions.
They do solo brainstorming. Yeah, that's
right, in silence.
Yeah, absolutely. Research shows that you get a much better result if you allow time for people to do solo thinking first and then share with the group, especially if you've got highly verbal speakers that dominate.
Yes.
And the introverts just need time without any sound at all to get their ideas out of their head. And isn't it important that there be conversational equality?
Yes. Oh, yes. Because if they don't own it, then forget it.
Now, you did mention that you might have a case study. Was that the Google one, or?
No, it's not. It's a client that I worked with a couple of weeks ago in the finance industry. And we took them through the process, and it was so good. The outcome was just incredible. Worked with the leadership team initially, and what we did was, and it was an 8 people in the leadership team, and the way that we did it was that we came up with 2 mission statements and 2 vision statements. And then the second half of the session was when the rest of the team came along, which was around about 20 people, I think it was. And the 2 mission statements were presented, the 2 vision statements were presented, and we went through a voting process.
That's really good. That's really good. Now, what about the people that were absent? Do they just have to live with it?
Well, I guess you'd have to say that people that couldn't come to the session would have to live with it. But as we did with the group that came in with those 2 visions and 2 mission statements, before the decision was made, and by the way, this was all done virtually, before the decision was made, we broke them, put them into breakout rooms, as you can do via Zoom, and they had discussions with the leaders and asked questions on how did they come to the mission. We also took them through not through the process of the silent brainstorm and so on, but the process was explained, the difference between the mission and the vision, the Google example, their own business, Here's what we've come to. We want your input into this. So there were lots of questions, and then there was, and even once the decision was made, there was a small amount of wordsmithing that was done then.
Now, I've also seen organisations do values statements. Is that different yet again?
Wow. Okay. That falls out of the process.
Yeah.
So in the case study that I've been referring to, what we did next was the strategic priority. So here's our mission and our vision. Here's what we need to focus on for, because they took their vision out 18 months,
right.
18 months to 2 years. So here are the strategic priorities that we have to set. And then we developed, you could have called it value statements, but what we did was a team charter of how we are going to work together. And so it was things like communication was very important. How do we behave? What happens when we have a disagreement here? You know, how do we work with our stakeholders? So all that came out of it as well. It was a huge day, a huge second half.
I was going to say, well, when you say how do we resolve disagreements, I mean, I've seen value statements that have these motherhood keywords, you know, like respect, integrity, collaboration. And I'm going, well, what happens if you've got a team member that isn't following that, and who actually decides whether they are or whether they're not?
That's exactly right. And that's where, and I actually learnt this, just going somewhere else, I learnt this from helping teams in a number of organisations move to that agile working environment. I don't mean agile as in IT agile. I mean agile as in, you know, the whole hot desking and working from different locations and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And so they developed, this is where this concept of a team charter came from. Right. So that it was like, here are our team norms. This is how we are. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest ones, particularly in an agile environment, is to call out the behaviour.
Oh, but you have to do it in a way that is safe.
That's exactly right. So
how did you do that? Did you have to set up a process?
It was a very simple communication structure.
Right. I mean, I've heard of like BFIR, behaviour, feeling, impact, result. Like when you came late to the meeting, I felt frustrated. And what it meant was we had to repeat what we were saying. And what I'd like to see in future is that you turn up a couple of minutes before we start. That's like a very basic template. Yeah. Is that the sort of...
That's exactly the sort of thing. What we also did in there, instead of tell the behaviour, because some of these were very, very senior groups, it was also ask to get the behaviour. What would you do differently? Like, given that these are this is the way that we're working, what could you do differently?
So this is very timely, because this question came up with a client yesterday. How would someone referring to their peer, how would they deal with that? Do they go up the chain to their manager and say, I'm having this problem and I want to call out their behaviour? Or do they deal with their colleague first and hope that their colleague is open to what they have to say or what they're experiencing?
That is one of the most difficult questions. So let me answer it twofold.
Right.
Firstly, all the organisations that I work with now are very much about, we're not going to go through this up and down thing, like escalate it up and then back down. We want you to deal with this at peer level, particularly where we've got psychological safety and those sorts of things that are very important for many organisations. You must be able to work at dealing with this at peer level, not only at peer level, but also up. Also up. And so it's the educating people on how to do that and creating the courage. I mean, how many organisations do you know that have got values of courage? Okay, so let's make courage real and call out a behaviour that does not support courage in our workplace.
Is there anything more you can tell us about other companies that you've worked with where they've created the vision and mission, and then maybe there were behavioural roadblocks, you know, people not taking it on board and operating according to the old norms, and the company wants the vision and mission to reflect some new norms?
Mm. Yes, again, going back to an example of a couple of weeks ago, there's a number of stages to this because, as you know, behaviour change can take time.
Mm.
And so in terms of the process is about getting people to buy in the first place. So that's number one, so that involvement. Number two, at the end of the session, there was an open forum with no names or anything like that, where it was just share the screen. What are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to continue doing? So that it's been around for so long. And then there's follow-up sessions with the team. And what is also been, a few people said, look, I don't know that I'm going to be comfortable to call out when I should. And so that is something that's going to be addressed. And that will have to be addressed in some mindset and skill.
Yes, because it seems to me that in my experience, even like sharing a house, when I was a university student, it's not enough to have a conversation in passing. It's more important to say, I'd like to have a meeting, whether it be one-on-one or one to a group, where we discuss certain issues. I've got a few issues I'd like to discuss. And just creating that space where you're saying, I'm going to bring some issues that I've got. I don't want to do it right now. I want to set up a time when it's convenient and we're focused on that. Is that kind of what's important?
Yes, definitely. And also because we're tending to go negative at the moment with the negative behaviour, what I want to also point out is that we make a big component of recognising behaviours that support the team mission and vision. So
that's up to the leader to kind of identify those and maybe acknowledge in front of everybody, compliment.
That's right. Yeah, I learned many years ago in one of the leadership program I got accredited in. It was called DR Squared. Direct reports deserve recognition.
Right.
And research actually shows that it's one of the most underutilised of all leadership skills to give people positive feedback. We're really good at telling them everything that they do wrong, but we're not as good as saying, hey, you know what, in that presentation the other day, and you've got to be very specific. The way that you answered the question on X, really, I could see really made the client feel so comfortable. Well done.
Oh, now that's very interesting, Cecile. It's not about saying how you handled yourself at that meeting was good. So especially when you did this behaviour or said this phrase, giving something specific that they did well. That's good. Because do you think some performance review meetings tend to focus on the negative that they want to correct?
Look, for so long now, I've worked very much on that feedback, not that sandwich thing, not that thing, more about what are you doing well? What do you want to improve? What are the actions that we take away from this? And it could be from what you've done well because you want to keep being able to do that, or it could well be from this is what I want to improve, so here's what I want to work on.
And this is a question for our guests as well, if you want to put the answer in the chat box. I'm just wondering, do some managers default to using performance feedback sessions, one-on-one or whatever, to just telling the direct report what they're doing wrong or what they don't like they're doing? And do you think they sometimes forget that compliments and positive reinforcement is just as important?
I think we do. Personally, I think we do tend to go on the negative side because it's easier, and we can, as a leader, you may think I can get some quick wins here. And we often don't hear the good stuff. And a colleague of mine gave me some great feedback the other day. And I tell you what, I have walked around with a smile on my face for a week because it was something that was really important that we needed to get right. And I got this fabulous feedback and I have just felt brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing. If people say the right thing at the right time, it can really uplift you. And I think that's where managers forget that they have this really important motivation role to play, and people are not robots.
Yes.
And the other mistake that I've personally discovered is that sometimes managers go, oh, they're good, so I'll leave them alone to do a good job. And they focus maybe on the beginners, like new people to the organisation, or the people that need help, And they forget the people that are just doing a good job, they also need attention.
That's right.
Or their motivation will go down.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll, that the skill will matrix thing.
Yes.
Fall out of that top box easily.
Yeah. Well, look, we like to keep these live Q&As short and snappy, so we've gone to about 22 minutes. So if there are any questions post this event that attendees would like to have the answer to, feel free to email me through info@brainpowertraining.com.au. Thank you very much, Cecille, for joining us today. And thank you to our guests, and all the best. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.